Hi guys, my name is Amber. I've been writing to a prisoner since 2018, and what I thought I would do is put together the information that I know into videos for any of you who are looking to write to inmates. Now, I'll split these up hopefully into different things depending on what you're looking for, but this first initial one is just going to be how to source your inmates and how to first reach out to them. Now, I'll go over, I've got 3 different websites here to show you. I'm not going to go into depth with all 3. I will go into 2 of them, which is where I found the 4 that I currently have. So I currently write to 4 inmates. They're from 4 different states, so I never choose more than one inmate from one state. Mines are based in California, Michigan, Idaho, and Texas. Now, I sourced, that's an awful word. I found 3 of them on Write a Prisoner. I didn't correspond with any of them initially though through Write a Prisoner, and I found one on another website which we will go over as well. In fact, no, I found 2 on Write a Prisoner and 2 on the other one. Now, for Write a Prisoner, I think the thing that I'm just going to quickly mention is this part here, so the prison forum. Now, I'm not going to click into it. In fact, I could, because I'm not signed in, so it's fine. You've got a forum here. Now, there's lots of different things in here. There's a lot of posts if you look at some. There's like 7,000 in here. 377,000 in here. What that'll usually mean though is that if you have any type of question, someone's probably already asked it before. So this is a great place to start. Now, some people in here have been writing to inmates for like 12 years. Some are actually married to them and live internationally away from them. So usually that's a great place to source information. So I've recently asked a question in there for one of my newest pen pals, so it's only been like 2 months for him. And he's the one based in Texas. And the question was around phone calls. So we obviously at some point want to speak to each other. Now that part is completely up to you with your pen pal. Some people want to keep it completely like correspondent. Does that make sense? What word am I even looking for? Some people just want correspondence in the written form with them, so they aren't interested in sharing any pictures, they're not interested in speaking on the phone, video chats, in-person visits, nothing like that, which is absolutely fine. Like, whatever you want to do, just be upfront with them. So if they do start to push those boundaries and say that they are looking for pictures or a phone call, then just make sure that you are upfront with them and say that's not something I'm looking for. If that is what you're looking for and you don't want to correspond anymore, then that's absolutely fine. You've also got the option to just not respond if they keep pushing that boundary and you're feeling uncomfortable. Just don't respond to them. I'll show you how to get around that for JPay. For writing, it's a little bit different, but there is things that you can do, absolutely. Now, the question I asked was because I am interested in having a conversation on the phone with my pen pal, I asked basically about how that works. So I'm obviously based in the UK and he's in Texas. Now, I asked that question in there, and within an hour, someone had responded, someone very helpful, and said, in the nicest way possible, it's never going to happen. So, Texas inmates can't phone internationally. There's absolutely no way around it, unfortunately. For some other places, what you can do is you can pay for an American phone number through an app, and they'll usually phone that number and it will just ring through your app. Now, for Texas, it's completely different. So, to be able to actually speak to them, you have to be on their visitors list, so they have to have your information. You also have to upload an ID, which is a US ID. So it's usually a US license they're looking for. They also ask for a copy of your phone bill from your US provider. There's no way around it, essentially, there just isn't. But what this person also told me that it's not the same for video visits. So if you are corresponding with someone from Texas and you don't live in America, you can schedule video visits with them. Now, Texas get 1 video visit per month, I believe, and it's 60 minutes, and it is free, but it depends what unit they're in. So for some units, you have to prepay upfront, I believe. I think you pay by the 15 minutes. It's not overly expensive, but again, depending on what your funds look like or how much you're willing to even invest, some people won't want to do that, which again, absolutely fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. For some units, however, it's free for 60 minutes, but what you have to do is you have to phone the warden of their unit and request the visit. What he'll then do is schedule the visit, but you won't actually get the link and anything for that visit till 5 minutes before it starts. I believe if you're X amount of minutes over, I think it might be 5, then you can't go ahead with the visit. And in some states you can, but they're not going to make up any lost time. So if you're 10 minutes late, your video visit's then only going to be 50 minutes. You don't get a rolling 60 minutes from when you join. So that was information that I managed to get from that forum, which is very hard to find online. So I would recommend that if you are planning on writing to anyone. If you have any questions, the prison forum's a great place to go. In terms of finding your prisoner, it really depends what your criteria is for who you want to speak to. I'm probably going to flip-flop between saying prisoner and inmate a lot. The reason for that is I usually say inmate, but every time I look at the website name, prisoner's getting in my brain and that's what's coming out my mouth. So sorry if I flip-flop between. However, it depends on what your criteria is for the inmate that you want to write to. For me, I didn't specifically have much of a criteria. I was more just curious about who was there. I scrolled through a lot of people before I ever wrote to anyone. One thing, however, I'm absolutely not interested in is writing to any inmate who's been convicted of anything relating to sex crime. I'm just not interested in it. People can absolutely change, but you know what? No, not interested, and that's fine. Some people will be, some won't. That person's not for me, they'll be fine, you know. So that's what I would completely avoid, and I will show you how to look at what they're incarcerated for and how to dig into that if you do want a bit more information. However, the best place to start for me, what I would say is if you go to inmate profiles, then search inmate profiles, advanced search inmate profiles. Now in here you can change the criteria of what you're looking for. You can be really specific, so within a certain age range, this is their race, religion, sexual identity, if they were in the military, if they went to college, like there's a bunch of stuff you can do in here. Some people will want to, I didn't really specifically want to. What, however, I would do now, which I didn't know at the start, so for institutional email, if you go to JP, what that will usually mean is they either have access to read and respond. Some people, that is through a tablet, so they have their own tablet. It's usually a JP tablet, so they can get their email actually on that and respond. For my pen pal in California, that's exactly what he does. Usually once I send him a message, he responds about an hour later. So it's a good few messages a day we exchange. Whereas some people it's actually at a kiosk. So for my pen pal in Michigan, he actually let me know recently when we spoke on the phone that they can check, they have 2 kiosks in their unit, I believe. They can check each kiosk 5 times a day, but no more than that. But they are allowed to check both, and it doesn't like count it for their overall 5. So they can check 10 times a day basically. And they can also respond on there. For Idaho, I believe it's a kiosk that my pen pal has there as well. So the female pen pal that I have is in Idaho. She also has access to Videogram through JP. So when I make a specific JP video, I'll go over that as well. But she sent me a video introducing herself. I sent her one back. Again, you don't have to do this. She did bring it up first, but she also sent hers first. And I then sent it back. I have sent a videogram to someone in California who doesn't have access to send one back. It's confusing why it's all different, but you don't have to share anything that you're not willing to share. I usually don't go into that much information with them unless I actually want to, and in the video itself I keep the background out. It's really just my face it focuses on. I'll strategically place myself. Again though, it's completely up to you. So I would change that to JP if that's something you are interested in. Usually that will cut down the time of your correspondence. If you're absolutely fine waiting quite a while, so for your first correspondence, if you do it through Write a Prisoner, be prepared to wait at least 2 months before you get any response from your inmate. It usually takes them a while to get it to them. They obviously then have to write you and send it. That itself can take 2-3 weeks just to get the letter. So it is going to be a bit of a long process if you choose to write through Write a Prisoner. But again, if that's what you want to do, absolutely fine, go for it. For JP, I've just found for me, it cuts the time down. So for 3 of them, I don't have to even give them my address. We just speak through JP. It's just like emailing someone. And for the one in Texas, he can't respond on JP, but he can read them. So I'll respond to his message on there, and he then writes me back. The whole process from me receiving his letter, responding, to getting to him responding, and it being posted back to me is about 15 days. Whereas it would be about 30 if I was then writing to him back through the mail. So it is completely up to yourself, but it's usually, it makes a difference. For me, the only other thing I really looked at was willing to correspond overseas. So even if the person has JP but they've said no, I usually still won't correspond with them because they've specifically said no. But usually what that will mean is that they're not willing to write like pen to paper to someone overseas just because of the time. But if it says no, I just don't even bother anyway because I don't want to contact them after they've said no, you know what I mean? So I'll say yes to this and then search. What that'll then do is bring up every inmate that meets that criteria. And obviously the more you filter, the less of a list that you'll get. So you can scroll through them. It gives you like a little bit of information, a bit of surface information about them. When you find someone that you think you would want to write to, personally, just quickly glancing, I'm probably not going to choose any of these people. However, let's choose Aaron. Reason being is I actually did write to Aaron once, I believe. What is he in for? Let me just check. Yeah, so he's in for drugs. So I did actually write to Aaron and he didn't respond. So we'll use Aaron as a template, you know. So this is a bit of information about him. Usually they'll write specific details about themselves. Now, what you'll usually find, and one thing to really pay attention to, is what it usually says. They usually put it right at the end, but just kind of pay attention. So he said, anyways, if you'd like to chat, hit me up on JP or write me a letter. What you'll usually find is that if they're unable to answer on JP, at this point, what they'll say is, please include your address because I can't respond on JP, so include your address in the message. That's usually what it will say here. So that's definitely one thing to pay attention to. Now, down here it will give you information about his high school, military. I'm usually not interested in that. Here are the details, however, of his actual prison. So sometimes you don't even have to actually use write a prisoner, because if I'm logged in, this is going to give you his entire address. So you can just pop that on an envelope and send it and he'll still get it. So you don't really have to use write a prisoner at all. Over here, it's got all the information about Aaron. I thought he was much older than me, but we're the same age, which is okay. So he has willing to correspond outside of the US as yes. What you might find, he didn't respond because I didn't put a picture in. So from speaking to the pen pals that I have now, some of them have said some people, when they get letters from people, they just don't even respond if there's not a picture in there. Absolutely don't let that deter you though, and don't feel as if you have to put a picture in there. If you write to someone and they don't respond, it's their loss. Move on, look for a new one. Don't feel like you have to actually give them anything for them to respond to you. Now down here is the bit that you're going to want to kind of look at. So it has the incarceration information. So for him, he's been incarcerated since 2018. He's not on death row. His earliest release is 2030. And that's his latest. So his latest is 2030, his earliest is 2025. If you click on here for see crime, this will give you what their crime is. This bit is usually a blurb. You don't have to read this for everything. It will say like, this gives you their main offence, but it doesn't give you all their offences, blah blah blah. Now, this is what they're actually in for. So it also says write a prisoner was able to verify this member's crime information at the time of posting this through a government website, meaning this is what he's actually in for currently, but it doesn't mean that that's all he's in for. So if you do want a bit more information, if you're happy looking at that incarcerated for and you think absolutely that's fine, I'm still going to write to him, not that it's fine, not that you're like condoning their crime, but it's within your criteria of what you're looking for, or your tolerance rather I should say, then you can absolutely at this point just message them. And I can maybe do another video of what you should say in your first actual message. to someone, or I can go over what I've said in mine, and that'll give you a bit of information of what I write. I usually give them quite a lot of information, but nothing overly personal, so very surface level, but I don't just write like, hi, how are you? So I can do another video on that. Now, if you do want more information of what they're actually incarcerated for at this point, what I would then advise is you grab this information here. So just take their name. You can include their I think that's their DOC number or their inmate number or whatever that is. So what you can then do is you can throw it into Google, and a bunch of other things are going to come up. So it looks like he might have some social media profiles or whatever. Now that's his profile that we've looked at. However, if you look at IDOC, so that I think that's going to be yes it is, I'm actually blind, Idaho Department of Corrections. Now, if you click on that, what it will then do is give you a bit more information usually. So for here, it's got that he's in for drug trafficking, which we knew anyway. It's got his middle name. When he's eligible for parole. So it looks like that is all he's in for. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll add on the state and then just say prison at the end, just to see if it gives you any more information. For this one, it looks like it actually gives a document, but we know that's not him because his middle name is not J, it's Wayne. Sometimes you will find things like that though, like court records, if you want to read them. Usually I'm not that interested, but that's the options there if you want it. So that is how you look up their crime. Usually if you do want more information, you'll absolutely be able to find some in Google. For one of mine though, he's been in prison for like 13 years and I couldn't find anything on his actual crime. Now, it was a non-violent crime and it was also a non-sex crime, which is why I chose to write to him anyway. So that kind of fit my criteria anyway, so I didn't need to know too much more information. However, if you do start writing to someone, they'll usually let you know up front. So what you'll usually find is they'll say like, feel free to ask me anything. Some will specifically say feel free to ask about my charge, which at that point you can then ask what happened. So for mine, the one that I couldn't find information on, he very quickly said like if you have any questions about my charge specifically, just ask me and I can tell you. However, there's also this website you can check that tells you exactly what my crime was. For him, he had multiples. It looks like he had a bit of a wild evening. He had like 6 or 7 or 8 in for like the same day. And that was his first charge, I believe, as well. Like he'd never been to prison before that. He was quite open. He said like feel free to ask, it's absolutely fine. Some are not as forthcoming. So from the one from California, he's never even mentioned his crime. He has briefly kind of touched on it, but in passing. His was a violent crime, but it was specifically relating to gangs, and it was a very specific situation that made me still want to write to him. So for him, I did all my research beforehand. It was quite a high profile thing at the time, I believe. He's also been in for about 10 years at this point. He's still got a bit to go. He's not even due for parole until 2030 or 2032. So he's still looking at some time ahead of him, but I was able to find quite a lot of information from various sources on his specific crime, and I was comfortable not with the crime itself, but the kind of situation surrounding it. I'm also not giving this person my address. We correspond in JP only, and he only gets the information that I want him to know. And he's a perfectly fine pen pal. He's been very platonic so far. He's actually got a girlfriend, so straight up front, I wasn't aware of that. It wasn't on his profile, so I said, oh, we'll stop corresponding here. I don't want to cause any kind of issue with you and your partner. And he said, no, it's fine. She encourages me to have pen pals because she can't write to me constantly, so she still wants me to have interactions. So she's absolutely fine with it. So he'll ask me kind of advice about his relationship, and how women work, and it's very platonic. He's absolutely fine as a pen pal. He's very respectful. He's never went over any boundaries. So he's been a great pen pal so far. All of mine have. Now I'll do a separate video on this. One kind of stepped over the boundary, but I straight away said, not interested in any kind of relationship with you. I'll be your friend, you can vent, but I'm not looking to kind of form any relationship here. And he said, oh, me neither. But he'd sent me very pointed questions that were, that's clearly where he was wanting to go. Now, we have spoke about this on the phone afterwards, and he gets it. He says he's not looking for that, or maybe he's just not looking for that now. But he gets it, but just make it apparent to these people, or make it apparent to who you're writing to, because they only have interaction with the people they're incarcerated with, so they don't have any outside interaction. Some of them don't even have family. So if there is someone that they can possibly get that type of attention from, they'll probably more than likely try and pursue that. Not all of them. The one from California never has, absolutely has never overstepped that boundary. One has, and one specifically said in his letter, what are you actually looking for from this? For me specifically, I'm happy to have a friendship, but I would hope that it would evolve into something more. All you have to do at that point is, if you're absolutely not looking for anything like that, just make it very clear. Don't leave any kind of way that they could misinterpret what you've said. Just say, I'm absolutely fine. I'm looking for a friendship only. I don't want it to evolve into anything past that at any point. And that's it. I just want friendship. Make it apparent. If they're not happy with it, then ditch them. That's my best advice I can give you. So from here, you can choose to actually write to them through Write a Prisoner. So you can do email Aaron now. What it will then do is open up your kind of email within Write a Prisoner. You can write whatever you want and send it to them. I don't know how it goes from that point on. I don't know if they print it and actually post it to the prison, or I'm not sure what happens here from that point. What I do know though is that they do see your profile, they see your name, they see your address. Some prisons take the envelope away so that they don't have your address, and some actually give it to them. So just be careful if you're wary about giving that information out. Hopefully you're fine with that if you're using Write a Prisoner, because for the most part they can only respond, or in fact, if you use Write a Prisoner, the only way for them to respond is actually through the mail, so you should be fine with that anyway, but just one thing to think about. Now, from here, what I would usually do is take this information and throw it into JPay. So usually all you'll need for JPay is their actual name, the state that they're in, and this number here. Throw it into JPay, add them as a contact. They will see it when you add them as a contact, so more often than not, if they see it straight away, they'll message saying, oh, there's a new contact, which has happened 2 or 3 times with me, so they do see it. Now I'll do a separate video entirely on JP itself, but that's basically an overview of Write a Prisoner. This is going to be your best friend in terms of filtering out what you do want to see and what you don't want to see. There's also inmates not receiving mail that you can pop into, so it usually means that no one's wrote to these people yet. So there's the option to check that as well. Now the next one I want to show you is one that's called Penacon. Now, I've also found 2 pen pals from this website, and I have to say those 2 are my favourites so far. One's a female, one's a male. They're based in Idaho and Texas. Now, on here, there are kind of little tags underneath, which I really like, because you can see at a glance what the pen pal was actually looking for. So for these, he's got looking for love. He's a new member, so he's just been added. He just wants friendship. He's featured, so usually they can, I think, pay to be featured so that they'll show up in searches more often. I don't know how that works actually, but featured is an option here. So I think you can filter on featured ones as well, maybe. Oh, apparently not. Okay. I'm sure you can. Yeah, so inmates who are featured. You've then got your tags here. So Lonely Lane, I think, usually means that they've not had much. Girl or boy next door. Urban is the streets. LGBTQ, looking for love, friendships. So there's white collar. I think that means they've like done white collar crimes. Able to email usually will mean that they've got JPay. So if you pop that in there, it will give you their profiles. Now, the difference of this one is that you don't get the little blurb. You do get, however, that little tag, their age, and what state they're in. So you can scroll through here if you do see someone that you do want to write to. Who should we choose? Let's go for Rebecca. So it will then bring up Rebecca's page and it will give you a bit more information about her. So this is what she's chose to write. So she's doing a degree right now, or she's received a degree. She goes to cosmetology school. You've also got down here so additional contact methods. So this user has an account through connectnetwork.com. You can register for an account and add your inmate as a contact. Sounds exactly like JP, to be honest. You can send email. So this is a good one as well. So on here she can send email and receive email, whereas on JP she can do text messages, video chat, and you can actually transfer her funds. Not that you would ever be obligated to do that, but that option is there. You've got all of her information here. So she's willing to write to anyone, male, female, straight, gay, bisexual, so anyone. She's not on death row. Her release date is 2023, so she's actually getting out next year. And if you click on click to view, it'll just pop this up. So possession and distribution of an illegal substance, kidnapping and assault. They've definitely spelled kidnapping wrong, but that's absolutely fine. That's what she did, and there's also pictures here so you can kind of scroll through them if they've got more than one, and it will show you them. So this is a great place to write to people too. Again, all you actually need for JP is their name and this number after their name. So if you want to go to JP, you know she has it because it's listed here. Pop it into JP, add them as a contact, you're good to go. So that's another website that you can use. There's also like an FAQ section in here as well that it's not got that much information on it, to be honest, but you can email here if you do want more. So that one is a good one. I've got two current pen pals from here. The female one in particular is just, we're very similar, like we like all the same stuff. She's a sweetheart, really. And she's in for a drug related thing. So that is another great one that you can use. Now the last one I've actually never used, but I have heard of before, so it's called wireofhope.com. Now at the top, this one actually gives you information, so always include your mailing address if you choose to email. Some inmates can only answer through postal mail, and visit our page about prison mail rules to ensure your correspondence will not be rejected. Now, that is a good one to actually check. So, some places specifically, you can't do at all. So, on the envelope, write your return address on the top left corner. Don't forget to write your country. Your first letter has to be on plain or lined white paper with a blue or black pen. Greeting cards are also banned in some facilities. Mailrooms are busy. Your letter could get separated from the envelope. For this reason, write the last name and ID number of your prison pen pal on every single page of your mail. Some allow it in foreign languages, some don't. No stickers, blah blah blah. Keep it to the minimum. So this is actually great. So this will apply for anything that you send. So even if it's not through mail, they do monitor what you say on JP as well. So this part in particular, pay attention to. So don't talk about anything that could be seen as a threat to security. For example, weapons, alcohol, drugs, other inmates, escape, tattoos, etc. Don't talk badly about the officers. If in doubt, simply avoid anything that could be misinterpreted by an officer in the mailroom, including jokes. Apart from that, you can pretty much say whatever you want with a winky face. So I think that's getting it. Some people have spicy times in their letters. Just be aware that if you do want to have spicy time, no judgment, but someone will read it apart from who you've sent it to. So just be aware of that. This one is great though because I have mentioned alcohol in one of mine before. Now, it was not in the context of him consuming it or making it or nothing like that. It was to do with my personal life and someone in my personal life. But that message actually got held back, and on JP you don't know if it has or it hasn't been. So it will show in sent, but they don't actually ever get it. So luckily mine responded and said, not sure if you've responded yet, but I didn't get your response. So that's why he didn't get that. So when I went back and said, I don't know if I said something in there, he said, well, if you've mentioned any of these things, chances are they've held back the email. So that's a great one to pay attention to, just so that you don't, because you don't actually find out. So even if it's a letter and they hold it back, you'll never actually know that. So you might just think that they've chosen not to answer you. So there's a good thing to kind of go with, just to reduce the chances of that happening. So that's the kind of the three main ones I would say. Wide of Hope I've heard of but I've never used. It does look pretty cool though, so it's got the same thing going on. So you've got your advanced search. Wow, okay, so it's actually got a bunch of stuff in here. Yeah, so it's the same thing as Write a Prisoner. It's the same thing as Write a Prisoner, but what I have noticed is it has this little button, so click here to let fate decide for you. Now when you click it, so if you're visiting this page, you probably need help finding a prison pen pal, blah blah blah. Every so often our team receives emails from people who do not know who to write amongst all of our members. So find my prison pen pal. Is it just, oh, okay. So you click that and it just gives you a random person. That's kind of cool. So Michael's 55 years old and incarcerated in the US in Texas. So this is his profile. Wow, it's actually like really detailed. Our hobbies are raising pit bull dogs, horses, and working at an animal shelter. I've also been a big brother to kids that are gang related, so I wonder if it's, I wonder what he's in for. So more about Michael. So there's all his details. I actually really like the way this is set up. It's easily digestible. You can click through it all. This is actually really nice. Like, look at this. Willing to write abroad. Yes, so it's kind of got all the snippets of information that you need. So he's in Win Unit in Huntsville. Sentence in for, 75-year sentence. Oh, but he's been in since 86. What did he do? Burglary of a habitation. Does that mean he got 75 years for burglary? That seems a lot. What's his name? Michael Hall? Well, that's going to give me the guy from Dexter. Now, this is probably a good example of why sometimes it's difficult to find something. So, this guy's name is Michael Hall. Now, Michael, quite common first name, Hall, quite common second name. Now, he's in prison in Texas. However, it appears that there was also a Michael Hall who was on death row and executed in Texas. Obviously, not the same man, because he didn't get a life sentence. He got 75 years. So there's that. So it's hard to find more information on him. I will find it. However, it might take a while, so I don't want to do it in this video, but I can maybe go through that at another time. That's a cool feature though, so it just gives you someone random. So those are the main three that I would recommend. Now, Wide of Hope, I don't have personal experience with, but I have heard of it. Whereas Penacon and Write a Prisoner, I definitely have, and have pen pals from those places. So hopefully that will help you in the kind of initial starting point of finding your inmate. Now I'll do a completely separate video on JPay itself to show you how to add contacts, how to kind of compose your email, how the app differs from the web version. So there's some things that you can do on the app that you can't do on the web version. So I can go over that information with you as well. But hopefully this video will help you at least kind of source your pen pal and do a little bit more research to keep yourself safe. Now, if you do have any questions at all, just fire them over and I'll try and answer as many as I can. And if it's something that I could even ask my pen pals to find out for you, I'm absolutely willing to do that as well. So let me know if you've got any questions at all, and good luck in finding your pen pal.